Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today we're doing our look back at a classic rock album, and we're featuring this album, Freehand by Gentle Giant. Actually, I think it might look better over here. Yeah, we'll try it over here. So anyways, this is an album that was released on August the 22nd, 1975, recorded in April by Gentle Giant at Advision Studios in London on the Chrysalis label, produced by Gentle Giant, and about 37 minutes in length. Band members include Derek and Ray Shulman, Kerry Minier, John Weathers, and Gary Green. I'm not going to list all the instruments played by the members of the band. It's too many and too complex. It would take up more than half the time of the video to do so. Enough to say they play like 40 to 45 instruments per band, per album, a lot of the time. So anyways, in the case of this band being such a multi-instrumentalist band, they're among the best of that genre, rivaling Yes, King Crimson, ELP, and even Rush, who all play different instruments, but no, I don't think anybody plays as many as them. But all of their stuff is very intricate. It's very complex time signatures, lots of multi-overlapping of instruments. The arrangements are complex and with lots of musical input from various directions. So to say that they are gifted in that area would be an understatement. So anyways, we're going to get down to the album here. The album is 7 tracks long. With this particular version of the album, there is also an extra track on it, which is just the same, which is the opening track on the album, but it's played live here. And I believe it says it's previously unreleased and recorded July the 3rd, 1976 at Calden Cone Theater in Hampstead, New York. So it's a live version of the song anyways. So we'll just talk about the overall feel of this album and what to expect from track to track. So I think this is a pretty upbeat album for Gentle Giant. Most of their stuff is a little bit more subdued, a little less upbeat. This has a very upbeat tempo to it. There's lots of catchy melodies on this, which is, a little bit unusual for Gentle Giant. They tend to be very non-commercial sounding, hard to penetrate albums, but this one has a lot of very catchy stuff to it. I think Derek Shulman's frontal vocals on this are really strong. One of the stronger Gentle Giant albums, I believe. And the complexity of the arrangements are among the most complex of all of their songs. So it opens with Just the Same. It's very catchy, very upbeat. This is the song that sets the tone for this album. Lots of interesting sounds here, like tons of stuff that you got to listen to a few times in order to say, hey, I know what that is. That's a harpsichord, or that is a flute, or that's a recorder, or that's the vibrosizer. And there's so many different instruments played. The bass and the drums are very strong here. The rhythm section really strong on this particular track, and the vocals, of course, are among the best on this particular album and in Gentle Giant in general. Definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. I gave it a 9, and I don't often give songs a 9, but I gave that a 9. There's 2 9s on the album. Okay, so On Reflection, which is the second track, this is a very unusual song, pretty much a vocal song in a lot of ways. The opening part, the vocal opening, is reminiscent to me of a song by Yes on their 90125 album. I'm just looking if I could see the album from them so that I can pull it down and do a little bit of a discussion and comparison between the two. And I'm not seeing it, of course, because I'm looking for it. If I hadn't thought about it, I would have pulled it out. There's a song on the Yes 90125 album where they do these vocal harmonies, I guess is what you might want to call it, little bits where they're all doing different pieces, kind of like the song from Fragile, which is Hold the Mule, Hold the Archer. I know I've seen that. Damn, I don't seem to be able to find anything today. Oh, here it is. So on this album, there is a song called We Have Heaven. That's what it's called. And there's some vocals where each member is doing a little different vocals. This is reminiscent of, the vocal parts on this particular song called Reflection. Lots of different vocals. You know, we had 5 members all singing, right? There's a vocal piano part on this. It's really tastefully done with a vibrosizer thrown in at the end. It's a very high, his voice is a very high falsetto on this. It's almost totally doesn't sound like him in some ways, but it's really, really well done. And then, of course, the vocal harmonies are off the charts throughout the entire track. And the instrumental is also solid here, but it's more secondary to the vocals part. Then we get to the next song, which is the title track called Freehand. It's basically somebody's hand cut off. And the other picture is of 2 hands strapped together, trying to give you that impression, right? So this song opens with a nice piano and then a keyboard part. And then there's a bass and keyboard dominated middle part where they're both playing quite frontal in this particular song, with some strong, catchy vocal parts as well. The instrumentation is probably among the strongest on this album as well. I think the album has a lot of like dominating keyboard parts. Like you could listen to this album, and I literally have, time and time again, and you will hear something in that instrumental part that you said, hey, I didn't even hear that before. That's the kind of dominance I'm talking about. And that's probably, between that and Just the Same, are probably my 2 favorite tracks on the album. Time to Kill, this is a odd kind of noisy opening, and then it has some vocal harmonies, lots of them, and the bass is really strong on this track as well. Ray Shulman at his best, I think, here. The next track, My Last Voyage, another really bass guitar opening part, pretty strong. Vocals are particularly solemn and infectious here as well, like they're just really dominating. The pastoral, there's a bit of a pastoral sound here as the song ebbs and tides between the fast pace and slow parts. I think there's a bit of a distorted part too in the song. I think it's tastefully done. It's called My Last Voyage. The song is not one of my favorite tracks, but still well within the range of being liked. I gave it a 7. Then we have Telebont. This is a heavy, catchy beat. Some nice flute and pastoral sounds here. A classic King's Court type of tune where you've got all of these King's Court type instruments like flute and harpsichord and a little bit of piano and some keyboards. It just gives that feeling of watching a Shakespearean play almost. And there's no instruments on this particular Sorry, there's only instruments on this particular part. There is no vocals. That's what I was trying to say. And then, of course, the last track, which is called Mobile. It's kind of a folky, almost Tull-like opening. Really catchy melody. And then you have a vocal, very strong vocal front. Keyboards are pretty strong and then pretty dominating at points in time on this particular track as well. And the piano and bass part that's in the middle is really tastefully done. But this is one of those songs that I talked about at the beginning, where it's a constant multi-layering. They start with one instrument, add another, add a third, maybe take one away, add another, take another one away, and add another. There's constantly, and then you get this kind of feeling like the song starts out in one kind of way with 3 or 4 instruments, and gradually it changes over time and becomes a bunch of different instruments playing the same thing. Really complex, really, I think, very difficult to arrange, and very difficult to play, and extraordinarily interesting to listen to. So I don't know if I made much sense with this particular album, but I just think it's very good. It's currently my favorite album on the album charts, on my album playlist. I listen to it the most of all of them, and I like it. I'm not sure if I like it quite as much as Acquiring the Taste, but I probably do. And that was a great album for me, one of the longest running albums on my playlist. This one's probably going to be pretty close to the same. Both of them, I think, are destined to be like masterpiece albums for me when their time comes to be classified that way. So just another great Gentle Giant experience. This is my third Gentle Giant album to listen to. On the first one, Three Friends, I have to say I listened to it for 49 years, but I really never got into it. 39 years, sorry. I never really got into it. It was Acquiring the Taste that brought these guys to me. This particular Freehand is just and made that even stronger. And I think I'm not sure which one's coming up next to be in my playlist, but I'm sure it will have just as much of an impact. A band destined for me, I think, to make my group. Maybe they'll make it the group of 9 or the group of 10, I'm not sure, but definitely I think they are among the best, most underknown about bands in rock history. Now, some people will say they're underappreciated. To me is what they are, or underknown, or whatever you want to call it. They definitely are that. Some people will say that they should be considered one of the great rock bands of rock history, and I'm not going to argue with any of that stuff. I just appreciate their music, as I know many people do. I hope you've enjoyed this video on Gentle Giant's Freehand, and I hope you will subscribe if you are new to the show, and we'll be doing more of this kind of stuff. So I hope you have a great night, and we'll see you next Monday for another look back at another classic rock album. Take care.